Next, let me start with the topic of the registration. In registration, few major amendments has been given. Let me discuss with the first amendment, requirement of the presence of the applicant for physical verification. And as we discussed in the chapter of the registration, where a person liable for registration, he has to make an application within 30 days, right? While making an application, if the Aadhaar authentication is done within 7 working days, registration will be granted. Is it clear now? Suppose if Aadhaar authentication is not done by the applicant, what will happen? The proper officer may grant the registration within 30 days. That too, there may be a chance of physical verification, right? Now, in the process of the physical verification, the personal presence of the registered person, the personal presence of the applicant was mandatory. Now it is dispensed with. Even there is no physical presence of the registered person, that is the person who made an application, the proper officer may grant registration. That is a new amendment. Are you clear? So let me discuss elaborately. Proviso to rule 9 sub rule 1 has amended to do away with the requirement of the presence of the applicant for physical verification of the business premises. Earlier, the physical presence of the applicant was necessary. Now it is dispensed with. Thus, as per the amended provision of Rule 9 sub Rule 1, where a person fails to undergo Aadhaar authentication or does not opt for the Aadhaar authentication, number 1, or number 2, a person who has undergone Aadhaar authentication but is identified on the common portal based on the data analysis and risk parameters for carrying out physical verification of a place of business. Actually, when an applicant done Aadhaar authentication, generally the proper officer may go for physical verification, right? But even Aadhaar authentication done by the applicant, right, in the common portal on the basis of the availability of the data and parameters, the proper officer may go for a physical verification. That is the second situation. And the third one, the proper officer deemed fit to carry out physical verification of place of business, right? Even Aadhaar authentication done and there is no any data analysis or risk parameters with the common portal, but still the proper officer want to go for a physical verification. Yes, he can do so. But earlier, if he go for a physical verification, the registration shall be granted within 30 days of submission of the application after physical verification of the place of business in the presence of, the word in the presence of the said person in the manner provided under Rule 25. Now this provision, this sentence has been removed. In the presence of the said person. So that even the applicant is not available at the physical premises, the registered person the proper officer on the basis of availability of the information, he can grant the registration. So finally, simply we can say physical presence of the applicant is not mandatory. So thus now presence of the applicant is not required for physical verification, right? So where and this is the first provision, and apart from that corresponding amendment is there. What is the corresponding amendment? Where the proper officer is satisfied that the physical verification of the place of business of a person is required after the grant of registration. My God, once the registration is over, now as per the new amendment, the proper officer may require his presence after the registration. Where the proper officer is satisfied that the physical verification of the place of a business of a person is required after the grant of registration, he may get such verification of the place of business done, and the verification report along with the other documents including photographs shall be uploaded in prescribed form on the common portal within a period of 15 working days following the date of such verification. Are you clear? So once the registration has been granted, once the registration is granted, even after granting of the registration, within 15 working days on the intimation given by the proper officer, now the applicant has to be presented with the officer as well as he has to provide the document. He has to attend with the officer as well as the required details has to be provided through common portal within 15 working days. Are you clear? And next, where the physical verification of the place of business of a person is required where the physical verification of the place of business of a person is required before the grant of registration in the circumstances specified in the proviso. Now, the professor or proper officer shall get such verification of the place of business done, and the verification report along with the other documents including photographs shall be uploaded in the prescribed form on the common portal at least 5 working days prior to the completion of the time period specified in the said proviso. Okay, so totally we have to observe the 3 provisions, 3 points. What are those things in the registration chapter? Registration, the first, right, earlier application for registration. When you made an application for registration, divided into 2 parts. Aadhaar authentication done by the applicant. Aadhaar authentication done by the applicant. Then what will happen? Registration shall be granted within 7 working days, right? Even Aadhaar authentication done by the applicant, still analysis and data of common portal suggested for physical verification, or the third one, proper officer presumes physical verification to be done. This is the second case. The first, second and the third case, Aadhaar authentication not done by the applicant. In first and second and third cases, in the first and second and third cases, first, second, third cases, right? Proper officer may done physical verification in the presence of applicant, right? Now what is the new amendment? Proper officer may done the physical verification. Now this sentence has been removed. This is amendment number 1. Are you clear? And amendment number 2. Amendment number 2, right? Even after registration, proper officer intended to get the presence of applicant, proper officer may serve notice to attend within 15 days of such registration. Okay, so this is the second amendment. Actually, once the registration is done, everything is over, right? But in the second situation, even after registration, if the proper officer intended to get the presence of the applicant, proper officer may serve the notice to attend the applicant within 15 days of such registration. This is the second provision, right? Where the see here, right, in prescribed form on the common portal within period of 15 working days of following the date of such verification, right? And the next, where the physical verification of the place of business of a person is required before the grant of registration, where the physical verification of the place of business of a person is required before the grant of registration. Suppose the third situation. Physical verification before to the registration. Then what the proper officer has to do? Proper officer has to done physical verification and upload all the documents, photos and information when at least 5 days before to the last date of registration to be granted. Are you clear? Actually, as we know that once an application is made by the applicant, right, registration has to be done within 30 days, right? Now the proper officer want to go for a physical verification. He has to complete all this procedure at least 5 days before. The physical verification, uploading of the photos, documents and everything must be done by the proper officer at least 5 days before to the registration, so that such physical verification is available only for a period of the 25 days, right? So these are the major changes in rule 9 sub rule 1, right? The first rule concern physical presence of the applicant is not mandatory, the first situation. And the second situation, suppose where the proper officer is satisfied that the physical verification of the place of business of a person is required after the grant of registration. Even after the grant of the registration, if you want to go for a physical verification, yes, you can do so, but provided within 15 working days of the following the date of such verification, he has to upload all the details in common portal, right? And the next one, where the physical verification of the place of a business of a person is required before the grant of registration. Now the proper officer has to visit and upload all the documents, photos, information, etc. at least 5 days before to the grant of registration. Are you clear? And the next, details of bank accounts required to be furnished. Details of bank account required to be furnished by the applicant. So what is the time limit? The earlier time limit was the time limit actually while we are making an application for the registration, an application itself we have to provide the bank details. Suppose if you don't have a bank account, after granting of the registration also you can provide, right? Such facility has been conferred by the rule 10A. What's that? Rule 10A. Earlier time limit. The time limit was 45 days from the date of grant of registration or the due date furnishing for the for filing of the return under section 39, whichever is earlier. Under section 39 concern GSTR 3B, right? Now such time limit has been modified. The time limit now within a period of 30 days from the date of grant of registration or before furnishing the details of outward supply of the goods or services are both under section 37, that is GSTR 1 or invoice furnishing facility, whichever is earlier. Are you clear? Rule 10A. Next, fourth one, rule 10A. time limit for providing bank account details. Time limit for providing bank account details. Right, earlier. After amendment. Earlier, the time limit was 45 days from the date of registration. (45 days from the date of registration) or due date for filing of return under section 39, that is nothing but GSTR 3B. Whichever is earlier. Whichever is earlier. That is the last date for providing of the bank account details. Last date for providing bank account details. Otherwise, what will happen? Your registration will be suspended. Now, such time limit has been reduced. Instead of the 45 days, now 30 days from the date of registration, and the second one, due date for filing of return under section 37, that is nothing but GSTR 1 or invoice furnishing facility, right? 10th of the following month or 11th of the following month. In case of the IFF, 13th of the following month, those due dates. Earlier, GSTR 3B, 20, 22nd, 24th of the due dates. Are you clear? Right, done. So, whichever is earlier. Right, from the examination point of view, important amendment. Right? And the next one. Next one, system based suspension of the registration in case failure to furnish the details of valid bank account within the stipulated time, or automatic revocation on furnishing the details, substituted under the third proviso to Rule 21A4. Actually, earlier there is a provision, where a comparison, actually the system itself suspend the registration of the registered person. The system itself may suspend the registration of registered person. What are those cases? What are the cases? Number one, a comparison of the return furnished by the registered person under section 39 with the details of outward supply furnished in form GSTR 1. Under section 39, GSTR 3B, no? Right? Under the GSTR 3B, it is a periodical return, monthly return, right? Even it will consist inward supplies, no? And GSTR 1 concern outward supply. So when comparison with outward and inward, there is a huge deviation. Or the second one, the details of inward supplies derived based on the details of outward supply furnished by his supplier in their form GSTR 1. See here, when system, the GST common portal compared the return GSTR 3B with GSTR 1, the system encountered huge amount of the deviation, or the details of the inward supplies derived based on the details of outward supply furnished by his supplier. That is nothing but, suppose I am the recipient, the person who supplied the goods, right, he is a supplier. He filed the return in GSTR 1, it will be auto populated in GSTR 2B, and the same amount of the details I have to claim in GSTR 3B, but there is a huge deviation, right? Outward, inward, huge deviation. In such a situation, the system may suspend the registration or any such other analysis as may be carried out on the recommendations of the council. Suppose on the recommendations of the GST Council, the system may do those type of the cross-checking works. In those cross-checking works, the system encountered any activity which is like as a misleading, or you are intended to avail excess amount of the input tax credit, or you are reducing value of outward supplies. In such a situation, your registration will be suspended. This is the old provision, right? Then what is a new amendment? The new amendment is nothing but apart from all those things, apart from all these things, there is a apart from all these things, there is a contravention of the provision of Rule 10A by the registered person. The registration of such person shall be suspended. This is the new amendment. What is the Rule 10A? Providing of bank account details. We discussed, right? Bank details. Suppose where the registered person not provide the bank details within the specified time limit, as we discussed, that is 30 days from the date of the registration or due date for filing of the return under section 37, right? In such a situation, your registration will be suspended. Once your registration is suspended, and further, when you provide all such bank account details, automatically such suspension will be revoked. When such suspension is revoked, automatically your registration will be come into the force. You can do the business, you can file the return, you can issue the tax invoice, right? This is the new amendment. Are you clear? And the next amendment, so that in this situation you have to remember system based suspension of registration in case of failure to furnish the details of valid bank account details within the stipulated time limit. So next one, system based suspension of registration in case bank account details not provided within the time limit specified in Rule 10A, right? So Rule 10A is nothing but bank account details, this one. So, and next, on providing bank account details on providing of the bank account details, automatically suspension of registration shall be revoked. Suspension of registration shall be revoked. Are you clear? So system based suspension of registration in case of bank account details not provided within the time limit as specified in Rule 10A, your registration will be suspended. Once the registration is suspended and after the time limit specified in Rule 10A, even belatedly, the registered person may make available such information in the GST Common Portal. In such a situation, your suspended registration will be automatically revoked. That means your registration will be coming to the force. You can file the return, you can issue the tax invoice, etc. And the next one, time limit for filing of an application for revocation of cancellation of registration. What's that? Revocation of cancellation of registration. Time limit for filing of application for revocation of cancellation of registration, it is amendment. It is amended. Suppose section 30, revocation of cancellation of registration. revocation of cancellation of registration. What is the revocation of cancellation of registration? Suppose where an applicant made for a an application for cancellation. First, registration will be suspended, and suppose if the registration is cancelled by the proper officer, an opportunity of being heard will be given. Suppose within 7 working days, if the applicant responded and proper explanation has been given or all the returns filed, then what will happen? Such a suspension will be revoked. Suppose where an applicant or the registered person not responded to the notice given by the proper officer, registration might be cancelled, right? So all these provisions we discussed elaborately in cancellation of registration under section 29. Cancellation of registration. Once the registration is cancelled, suppose in the near future again the registered person want to make an application for revocation. Sir, please excuse me, sir, I don't know, I don't have a knowledge about the cancellation of the registration. Actually you served a proper notice and I have to file the return. Yes, still there is a pending or I have to file the few returns. Sir, please hereby revoke the cancellation of registration. I will file all the returns and I will pay all the taxes and penalties. In such a manner, the registered person may request the department. But the situation it is, he has to make an application within 30 days. Application for revocation of cancellation within 30 days. And again this time limit can be extended. For a further period of 30 days by the joint commissioner or deputy commissioner. Again it can be extended by further period of 30 days by the commissioner, right? This is the old provision. There is no any amendment in this line. Just I gave it an overview of the section 29 and section 30. Now let me go for an amendment. What is an amendment in this area? Now here actually the registered person has to make an application within 30 days. No, such time limit has been extended to 90 days. So even the proper officer issued an order for cancellation or a proper officer cancelled the registration, a registered person can make an application for revocation of cancellation within 90 days from the date of cancellation of registration, right? So that within 90 days a registered person can make an application. Suppose if he made an application belatedly, still he has an option to make an application to the commissioner, assistant commissioner or deputy commissioner or commissioner. They can extend for a further period of 180 days. This time limit has been extended. Thereby, actually, the business people may not have a knowledge about the cancellation of registration and its impact. Suppose after registration, even they come across the situation and they taste the flavor of the cancellation, but while making an application, the situation is beyond their hand. Reason? They have to make an application within 30 days. It could be a short term to the business people, right? So by considering of these type of the public interest and especially MSME sector, the government has been extended the time limit up to 90 days. So without any limit, the registered person can make an application within 90 days. Suppose even belatedly he can make an application, that is even beyond the 90 days, he can make an application for revocation of cancellation of registration, provided such application must be made within 180 days. Are you clear? That means commissioner can extend the maximum time limit of 180 days. Are you clear with this? See here. So the time limit for making an application for cancellation of registration has been raised from 30 days to 90 days, right? And commissioner or officer authorized by him in this behalf can further extend this time period for a further period not exceeding 180 days. That is, in addition to 90 days, the proper officer can extend up to 180 days, right? This is the new amendment. Any doubt? So he can make an application within 90 days and for a further period of the 180 days. This is an amendment. Any doubt? Any doubt? Right? The next one. Next, rule 8 subrule 1 amended. It has been amended to exclude a person supplying online money gaming from a place outside India to a person in India from declaring their PAN and state union territory for applying for registration. Suppose, take an example, a person who is located in USA, suppose is maintaining an app, that is gaming app, in India. Now he has to obtain the registration in India. Actually such benefit, you have a knowledge about the unique identification number, right? And NRTP people. Actually these peoples are not liable for producing any PAN number. Without producing of the PAN number, they can obtain registration in India. Have you come across a situation? Right. In section 25, we discussed elaborately the concept of the registration. Now, a small benefit has been given to the online money gaming business people. A person who is located outside India is maintaining any online money gaming app in India. He has to obtain the registration. Even though you don't have any PAN number, without submitting the PAN number, he can obtain the registration. And apart from that, no need to declare any state or union territory. No need to declare any state or union territory. Are you clear with this? So this is the rule 8.1 amended. Actually, NRTP no need to require to produce PAN number. The same benefit has been extended to the a person who is applying online money gaming from a place outside India. And the next one, unregistered persons with aggregate turnover up to the threshold limit permitted to supply of goods through an e-commerce operator. Actually, this is the one of the clarification. Yeah, let me explain. Unregistered person with aggregate turnover up to threshold limit permitted to supply the goods through an e-commerce operator. Okay, seventh one. Online game supplies provided by a person located outside India and is providing services in India, right? He can obtain registration. He can obtain registration without providing details of PAN and state or union territory, right? And the next one, a person supplying yeah 9 subsection 5, a person who is supplying the goods or services through e-commerce operator who is liable to reduce TCS under section 52, right? Suppose, as you know, a person who is a supplier of the goods, if he is supplying goods through e-commerce operator, suppose through Amazon or Flipkart to the customers, right? The e-commerce operator is liable for reducing of TCS under section 52. Then the supplier is liable for registration under section 24. Is it? Now a small clarification has been given here. The supplier who supplying through e-commerce operator, if he is liable for mandatory registration, then what will happen? Automatically his business will get affected, right? Right? He is liable for registration under section 24. Consider a practical scenario where a person dealing with flowers or bouquets, right? His aggregate turnover not exceeding, let us assume 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs, right? Now, one brave person like you given a suggestion to the small business person, array yaar, why you should not supply the goods or your bouquets through Amazon or Flipkart? You can get big deals, no? So automatically at the instructions or suggestions of like you, he started to place his goods in Amazon or Flipkart. Now the question it is a small business person, his aggregate turnover not exceeding 5 lakhs or 6 lakhs, he was not liable for any registration, no need to pay any GST. Now only because of your suggestion, he placed his entire goods in the Amazon or Flipkart. Thereby what will happen? The e-commerce operator is liable for reducing of the TCS, and where a supplier making supplies through e-commerce operator, he has to go for a mandatory registration. So what will happen? Suppose only because of your suggestion is aggregate turnover increased by 2 lakhs, let us assume. That is 5 lakhs turnover became 7 lakhs. But only because of that, what will happen? From the next year onwards, 7 lakhs into 18%, he has to collect GST from the customer. Approximately has to bear 1 lakh rupee of GST. He is a small business person. He is not in a position to enjoy the threshold limit or exemption limit only because of this provision. Only because of the provision where he is making supplies through e-commerce operator. Suppose take an example, a lady who is selling dunk cakes, right? So have you come across the situation? Yeah, dunk cakes. So when dunk cakes are sold through Amazon or Flipkart, what will happen? She is liable for registration. Like that, small things are sold through Amazon or Flipkart, that is through e-commerce operator. They are liable for registration under section 24. Now in this context, a small amendment has been brought into the picture. Here the amendment contains supplier whose aggregate turnover does not exceed turnover does not exceeds threshold limit or exemption limit, no need to obtain registration. No need to obtain registration. This is the new amendment, so that the small business persons happily they can do the business through e-commerce operator. No need to go for a mandatory registration. That is a new clarification. And one more thing, the second condition, supplier has to provide PAN number to e-commerce operator and obtain verification number. Are you clear? So supplier has to provide PAN number to the e-commerce operator and obtain verification number, or the another name it is called, yeah, it's called enrollment number. And the third one, supplier should not make interstate supplies. These are the conditions. Supplier should not make interstate supplies. And again, supplier should not obtain registrations in more than one state or union territory. Are you clear? Supplier should not obtain registration in more than one state or union territory. On satisfying of all these conditions, a supplier can make supplies through e-commerce operator without obtaining the registration. See, few conditions are provided here. Such person shall not make any interstate supply of the goods. The first condition. Second, such person shall not make supply of the goods through e-commerce operator in more than one state or union territory. And the third one, such person shall be required to have a PAN number, and such PAN number must be made available to the e-commerce operator, address, state and union territory of the business person. And next, such person have granted an enrollment number on the common portal on successful validation of the PAN declared above. So such PAN number has to be provided in the common portal, and he has to obtain the enrollment number. So such enrollment number must be obtained from the GST common portal. Are you clear? Such enrollment number has to be obtained from the GST common portal, and such person shall not be granted more than one enrollment number in a state or union territory. Right? Reason he is not eligible to do interstate supplies, so that he has to obtain registration in any one state or union territory. And the second one, no supply of the goods shall be made by such person through e-commerce operator unless such persons have been granted an enrollment number on the common portal. Right? Suppose where a person don't want to go for a registration and he want to make supplies through e-commerce operator. Yes, you are eligible, but we have to get the enrollment number through GST common portal. Are you clear? Without getting enrollment number from the common portal, you cannot make supplies through you cannot make supplies through e-commerce operator. And where such persons are subsequently granted registration under section 25, the enrollment number shall be ceased to be valid. Once you obtain the registration, then what is the purpose of the enrollment number, right? It shall be ceased to be valid from the effective date of registration. So these are the conditions to be satisfied. A person who is supplying goods or services through e-commerce operator without obtaining the registration, he can make the supplies. From the examination point of view, important. Are you clear? The next one, tax invoice, debit and credit note. But before that, let me recapitulate the amendments which we discussed in this chapter. Registration. So application for registration. Earlier, if the proper officer want to go for a physical verification, personal presence of the applicant was mandatory. Now it is not mandatory. And the second one, even after registration, if the proper officer want to go for a physical verification, proper officer intended to get the presence of the applicant or for physical verification, yes, he can do so. But proper officer may serve the notice to attend within 15 days of such registration. And the third one, physical verification before to the registration. Now, when the proper officer want to go for a physical verification, he has to done the physical verification, uploading of the documents, photos, information at least 5 days before to the last date of the registration. That is, he has to do the physical verification within 25 days from the date of an application. Next, rule 10A, time limit for providing of the bank account details. Earlier, 45 days from the date of the registration or due date for filing of the return under section 39, whichever is earlier. Now it is amended like as 30 days from the date of the registration or due date for filing of the return under section 37, whichever is earlier. And the next, system based suspension of registration. Earlier, due to few reasons, the GST common portal, the system itself, it can suspend the registration of the registered person. Now one more element has been added, that is where bank account details are not provided within the time limit as specified in rule 10A, right? The system can suspend the registration. And in the near future, when the applicant or the registered person provided the bank account details, automatically whatever the registration suspended earlier, it will be revoked. Next, revocation of cancellation of registration. Earlier, once the registration is cancelled, the registered person or the person whose registration is cancelled, he has to make an application within 30 days from the date of the cancellation. And suppose if you want to go for an extension of the time limit, yes, you can make an application to the joint commissioner or deputy commissioner. They can extend time limit for 30 days. And delay is beyond to that, he has to make an application to the commissioner, and the commissioner also can extend maximum of 30 days. This was the old provision. Now, the amended provision, it is the person whose registration is cancelled, he can make an application within 90 days from the date of cancellation for revocation of cancellation of the registration. Suppose he didn't make an application within 90 days, he can make an application for extension of the time limit, but such time limit further can be extended maximum of 180 days by the officers. The next, the person who is doing online game supplies, a person who is making online game supplies located outside India, providing supplies in India, he can make an application for registration without providing the PAN number as well as state or union territory details. Next, a person who is supplying goods or services through e-commerce operator, and that to e-commerce operator is also liable for reducing of the TCS. In such a situation, supplier was liable for registration under section 24. Now a small relaxation has been given with a few restrictions. Are you clear? So that in such a manner we completed the amendments in the chapter of the registration, right? Please pause the video and go through once.